Welcome to Well Today. Today on Well, I'm gonna kind of take a step back, comforting, just a appreciation out here in Food by the Word country, and just let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation. Not a harsh conversation. I don't think it's harsh, but gotta say, what's harsh to one is not harsh to another, and that's really the conversation for today. Conversation for today on Well is we all have different perspectives. As I look at what I'm looking at right now, I'm pretty sure it's probably different than what you're looking at right now. What I appreciate, is different from what others may appreciate. I enjoy the peaceful serenity and sanctuary, of nature. Even though there's bugs and there's, little critters out here and everything. I was just looking at the deer that we have that reside back in there in the forest there. But I understand that that's, not everybody's bag, but the reality of it is what we really must come to terms with, especially in today's environment, is the appreciation of other people's perspectives. Because I enjoy certain cities as well, certain different attributes and aspects of different cities. Mostly my self-preference is smaller cities, but I do appreciate some of the larger cities, some of the things that you see. Last year, got a chance to pass through Chicago, which was very interesting. I mean, I've been to the fringes of Chicago a couple times, but I've never really been through the heart of Chicago, and that was pretty interesting. The different perspectives are important, though. This is a part of Indiana that most don't get to see, and it's lovely and beautiful. But also I'm from Colorado Springs originally, and seeing Colorado Springs will, and the mountains and juxtaposed by the prairies, to the east, and you have the mountains to the west. That's a perspective that's really, you have to experience it. It's something that you have to experience, but it speaks for itself for those who appreciate these sorts of things. Even if you don't appreciate it, you will appreciate the awesome magnitude of what you're seeing that, God has built and constructed. So in and of itself, cannot be ignored. But that's the conversation on Well today is, all of these different perspectives are very important. We're not meant to just all have the same experience, but the beautiful thing is, though, is we bring different experiences to the table, and then we coordinate with one another. And this is how we build with these different perspectives. See, that's the important thing, to realize the importance of different perspectives. I personally love different perspectives and seek out different perspectives, but the time that we're in, for the past several years has become so polarized that people are fearful of different perspectives at a high rate, unfortunately. And that's causing a lot of slow movement, a lot of slow starts, if any starts at all. But we have to say, we have to take a step back and, ourselves, we have to really focus on mastering ourselves for one, but the reality of it is, though, is we have to understand and appreciate the benefit of varied perspectives, of varied, insights and varied opinions even. Here's the thing though. Being mature and a mature adult, we must understand that every opinion does not carry the same, the same weight. Every opinion does not, and it's not always as important. That might be a harsh, it's not as important as others. There are important opinions and there are unimportant opinions. It's really good to know and understand which opinion you're espousing at any given time as a mature adult. Now, as a young child, that's another story. You're learning, you're growing. And you should, test and try opinions to find out as you're learning to grow and gain wisdom. But as an adult, we have to be more responsible for our opinions. And that's one thing that's really been lacking the past several years is adults being responsible and accountable for their opinions and the destructive nature sometimes of their opinions. We have to be very deliberate and intentional about our communication. And this is why so much communication has been, decoupled, has been destroyed in some senses, has been disheveled, has been disconnected from one another. It's become very hard for people to communicate. Well, this is the time on, like I say, this episode of Well is just really a continuance of the conversation around the importance of communication. And hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm just out here in nature, going for a little walk out here in Food by the Word country. But I just wanted to take this time and really just say, well, let's bring it together. Let's make it happen. Time is a very precious and fleeting resource. But let's be clear. We all that are currently living have the same amount of time as each other. That's the one thing that we all share. Now, how we use it is a whole nother story. How we use it is a whole nother story, and how we're choosing to use it is a whole nother story. Are we choosing to serve others? Are we choosing to only serve ourselves? Are we choosing to serve others for our own selfish gains? Are we choosing to, ignore others because we're incapable of communicating and confronting and we lack conflict resolution? Well, that's a thing. That's a reality. If that's you, it's something that you have to be very, truthful and honest with yourself about, and it's something that you got to, work on because it's important. In a civil society, for us to be able to communicate, have conflict resolution, and be able to, communicate our points of views for the greater good. Now that's in a civil society. Now in an uncivilized society, go for what you know. Anarchy, it's all about me, myself, and I. But that's not the society that we say we live in. Now, these are the choices that we have to make. On a day-to-day basis. I choose. Praise be to God. I choose to be who God created me to be. I'm an advocate. I'm, a servant by heart, not by choice. I'm you put me in a place and in a room, I'm going to serve by nature, just naturally, I'm going to serve, and that's how God made me to be. Now, what that means is I have to surround myself with others that have other attributes, But service is not just an exclusive attribute. We can have a lot of different personality types, and service should be a part of all of our lives in a civil society. But the thing about it is, when I look at those who gravitate towards me, strong personalities, leaders, these strong personalities, these leaders, are very distinct personalities, and their personalities differ from mine. And these are the relationships that we actually have the opportunity to really grow some things in. But the problem with the date and time that we're in right now is most people are confused about, should I affiliate with this person? Should I affiliate with that person? Should I, they're second guessing themselves. And these are people who have been alive for a while, who have experienced a lot of life. And now, for the past several years, leading up to 2026, now question and are confused about, should I associate with such and such? I know that we have, chemistry. I know that we have, natural chemistry even. I know that we have, great viewpoints. I know that they have great ideas. I know I have great ideas, but should I associate with them? How do I associate? People are afraid. People are literally genuinely afraid to engage or to be seen engaging with somebody that they really would like to, partner with, engage with, build something with. That's unfortunate. I can honestly say, thank God, that's not me, but I do understand that that's how some people feel. That's how some people live. That is some people's, real lived experience in real life, today in 2026. Like I say, I thank God it's not me, but the reality of it is I have to be aware that these are some of the struggles that people are going through. That these are some of the, concerns that people have. And this is why I say, I got to personally take a step back and be aware, be cognizant of other people's concerns and worries and so forth, and allow them to face that, deal with that, come back to the table. Here's the thing, though, that we got to be very aware of. You may not always get a chance to come back to the table. The table may have moved. The table may not be where you left it. The table might not be where you chose to not, sit down at that time at. So this is very important that we say, okay, hey, from a time standpoint, especially being a professional, hey, I can't procrastinate here in this moment, in this time. I got to be decisive. I got to make decisions. I've got to be aware. I got to be alert. I got to be present in this moment to actually build some things. Because here's the thing. The human currency is going to become more and more valuable as we live in this technological age that we're in. The human value. Now, right now, the human value is not that high. Let's just be honest. But the human value will become the precious and cherished commodity in the near future for those who are able to tap into it, because a lot of people will not be able to tap into it. They won't have the for all intents and purposes, the people skills. People lack a lot of people skills. Now, they'll have times and chances to learn them, and people be teaching, these soft skills, as they're called, people skills. But the reality of it is, right now we have the opportunity, and that's why I'm focusing on communication. Now, I'm focusing on communication because this is the thing that, if you hear what I'm saying right now, if you can, if you're watching this video, hopefully it makes sense to you for one. But if you're watching this video, you have the opportunity to exercise, strengthening your critical thinking, exercise strengthening your communication skills, whether you're introverted or extroverted. You know, these are transferable skills from one thing to another. These are useful for all of us in this civilized society. You know, and so today on Well, I just kind of really want to kind of focus and, you know, blend the natural the natural, you know, with the modern, with the you know, the technical, with the emotional, with the spiritual, you know, but I wanted to really, you know, show you not only what I'm seeing, but hopefully connect with you in my voice. So I really want you to hear what I'm saying. I don't want you to focus in on you know, my face or how I'm looking, or, you know, even though I don't mind seeing my face. I'm not the prettiest guy in the world, you know, but I don't mind seeing my face. You know, I thank God that I even have a face. But I want you to hear my voice. I want you to hear the words. I want you to think about what I'm saying. I want you to really ponder on what's being said to you in this moment. I want you to really, you know, give it some time and let it soak in and contemplate, you know, why is it complicated or so hard for you to communicate with others? Really have that conversation with yourself. This is very important. Your ability to communicate with others, especially in this time and date, can quite possibly be the determining factor between your growth and your lack of growth for the rest of your life, especially in this environment. So today on Well, just wanted to really kind of take a moment, say, hey, how you doing? And say, well, you know, I may have never thought about it like that. Well, let me look in the mirror. Let me have a conversation with myself. Well, let me pray. Let me go before God and really, you know, seek, you know, more insight on who I am, why it's so hard for me to communicate, why I struggle with communicating with others. And, you know, let's have a conversation. Please like and share the video. You know, let's get this YouTube channel built and everything. You know, I want to make more creative videos for you and interactive videos for you, but I definitely would like for you to engage, like I say, like the video, share the video. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. You know, let's run these numbers up. You know, one thing that I want to do, that I'm going to do, is building Well, you know, to a place where, you know, it's really, this is a lifestyle. This is a lifestyle. You know, this is a lifestyle blog. This is not a, you know, in your face, you know, controversial, even though some things you may feel are controversial. I don't know. But the reality of it is, you know, greatly appreciate it. You know, like I say, like and share, watch the video all the way through. Probably should have said that at the beginning, but you know, I didn't. But God bless you. And I'll talk to you later. Say, well, talk to you later.